Hello once again, and then so at the patch, NDC say Tiasena Asada and Kayakopon, NDC, the 13th, observation of our late ex-president, Yekadia Neyeka Atta Mills, a 13 good years in the internet day, Yaba UPS say, yeah, bearing, Yabaka Kano, in the 13 years, Atta Mills, a way, that is NDC and Manuel Kono Abahase say on by year observation. That one near share the Butaye and Yamabia ye and the Yadikano Abra now Chas no Yamampin and Tebusa Kamihona Yankona Yakosania arrivals near other events are Ecoso Wana is far it's here.
Just always wonderful to remember.
What do you remember about
the simplicity, the fact that you always understood that you're just a servant of the people. I think somehow it becomes much more memorable when you remember that the one who took over after Mahama was his classmate, talking about the and the contrast between the two would always remain in the history of our country. One absolutely simple, loving country. The other, unfortunately, giving us the most forgettable performance that this country has seen. So, companies will always be remembered.
All right, we start for Mamuni Akwawa, Eba channel, Ghana Online TV, so Ghana 247. Nede Yabedu hard, that's Osha, Yamapa, Atta Mills, Abra, Nede, Ye Kano Wu, and Sanya Overbo Mangana. NDC amamu no so ebefa akunya no omo ama yebaba John Dramani Mahama ono so eba be hye nenwonyam abra say niwu eba ye ebe ma yinia ye bupusa abra owuye no nia no ye hwe se wampeni dada Atamos niwu no ebe ye mfaso kese Adamo, my God, until arrivals, and they say Yeguswa, Yikano, arrivals, and they say the mom, penny for Kudam, and then a buying penny for what can be my and also any Speaker of Parliament, and also have a Speaker of Parliament, and also have a draw, ordinary young Cassiano, by Ebetage, Indiano, on mine, you Shepa, who are. Ama inya ye twen se Ghana ban so ebema inya ye hu sania na ba mo tete
Of staying away from corruption, then we can save a lot of money when it comes to the nation's resources.
All of them.
And I said, oh, but I'm married, sir. He said, Julius, most your band, me independent now, I won't continue to be a better mercy. And that's why I dropped your name. President Mahama fulfilled the promise President Atta gave me by making me the Institute Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, you would agree that these lessons come from the unique stories of distinguished personalities and many more are needed in our current day leadership and political governance. It is why today our President, John Dramani Mahama, and other like-minded men and women of honor are working so hard to reset Ghana. Therefore, the theme for this year's commemoration, Atta Mills, a case study for the Fourth Republic, is an opportune reflection on the importance of principles, identity, and responsive leadership and transformational legacies. Your Excellencies, every now and then, when we go down our knees and thank God for keeping our peace and oneness as a people, we must extend this thanksgiving to the loving memory of President Atta Mills. The late president is not only celebrated as leader of high moral standards and patriotism, but also one with an exceptional level of tolerance and respect for dissenting opinions. His love for peace and stability translated into how he handled disagreement and the politics of divisiveness during the time. The title Asundwehini is a lasting description of the role Atta Mills of blessed memory played in consolidating our peace, stability, and unity as a people, despite our volatile multi-party landscape. Distinguished audience, from the Asundwe title given to the late president, to a seasoned task scholar, and to a virtuous leader, descriptions of the late president, but miss him on his 81st birthday. Every year, we are fortunate that this commemorative lecture presents us the opportunity to learn a piece of a leader who once lived and impacted many lives. This year, after a critical analysis of Ghana's fourth constitutional republican status, which commenced in 1993, one can conclude with certainty that there was something unique about Professor John Evans Atta Mills and his leadership under the Fourth Republic. I am sure our seasoned lawyer and former EC chair, Madam Charlotte Osei, will do justice to this topic. Even more so, I am told she became the first keynote speaker of the memorial lecture who was a student of Professor Mills. Professor Mills taught her company law, and she received the prize for the best graduating student in company law. Allow me to give a few precursors to highlight the additional importance of the team. In telling the story of the late John Mills, it must not be lost on us that he was once Vice President under Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. By virtue of this, the late statesman did not embody only one generation. He was a blend of the experience of the post-military regime and the democratic constitutional government. He had practical experience of what it meant for a country to continue grappling with developmental issues, lack of public trust, and the ills of both perceived and actual corruption within our public space. He understood bold and courageous leadership, but as a respected jurist and teacher of the law, he appreciated the aspirations and wishes, concerns and chants of the people. Our people and country were crying for a principled yet people's leadership. The people silently called for patriotism and not the politics of petty partisan divisions. God's gift to our Fourth Republic was John Evans Atta Mills. He was a hybrid of the old order and aspiration of the people. Someone who knew
and created the foundation for everything he would accomplish as a teacher and as a president. His humility made him approachable. His integrity earned him trust across divides. His commitment to peace created stability for progress, and his love of learning inspired others to pursue excellence. For most Ghanaians, lawyers of my generations, we knew Mills more as a teacher. We are very glad that when Professor Mills returned to Ghana after Stanford Law School, he chose the path of academia and did not pursue more lucrative opportunities in private practice or international organizations. Mills' first formal teaching assignment was as a lecturer at the Faculty of Law at the University of Ghana, Legon, and he would spend the next 25 years in this role, rising to Associate Prof in 1992. But the real measure of Mills, the teacher, lies not in his academic achievements or the many papers that he authored, though they were considerable. But the real measure was the impact he had on the minds and hearts and lives of his students. Mills taught us that reputation built in silence lasts longer than applause. For Prof, the classroom was more than a venue for transmitting information. It was a sacred space where minds were opened, characters were formed, and futures were shaped. Students who attended his law classes remember a professor who demanded excellence but provided the support necessary to achieve it. He had very high expectations, and his marks were usually very low. But he also had high investment in our success. Mills understood that teaching law was not just about imparting legal knowledge, it was about developing legal minds. He taught his students not just what to think, but how to think. He emphasized critical analysis, logical reasoning, and ethical reflection. He wanted his students to understand not just the letter of the law, but its spirit and its purpose. He saw law as a tool for addressing social justice or for enabling social justice and national development. He did not see legal education as merely professional training, but as preparation for service to society. Hence his earlier admonition about not being the cause of anyone losing their job. He also emphasized the importance of integrity and legal practice. He understood that as lawyers, we would face situations where we could choose between personal gain and professional ethics. Through his teaching and personal example, he sought to instill in his students the moral foundation necessary to make the choice. And this teaching went beyond the classroom to his approach to everything. Honorable Nana Oye and her friends giving a group of them lifts to Makola. So when they were 2, it was fine. But as word spread, they became 3, and then 4, and then 5. So now, Prof decided that when he gets there, he's not going to decide who gets into his car. The first ones to arrive get the lift. And that was Prof. Always fair, even in the little decisions. While he was an excellent classroom teacher, his greatest impact as an educator came through his mentorship relationships with individual students. Prof had an extraordinary ability to identify potential in young people and to nurture that potential through guidance, encouragement, and opportunity. As one of his students in both commercial law and company law, I experienced firsthand the transformative power of Prof's mentorship. Prof saw something in me that I had not yet seen in myself. He challenged me to think more deeply, to write more clearly, and to aspire more boldly. But more than that, Prof believed in me at a time when I was still learning to believe in myself. Mills was particularly committed to mentoring young women in law, recognizing the barriers we faced and the potential it represented. Lady Julia Seitifu and myself were 2 young women who probably would not have been able to obtain our Master of Laws degrees without the support of Prof Mills. He was a constant referee on every young student's applicant for graduate work. Through Prof's support, one of my classmates ended up at Prof's alma mater, the London School of Economics, for his LLM. And Prof helped him to get his first job at the Ghana Stock Exchange when he came back home. And for all the students, Prof did not have to know where we came from, who our parents were, he just helped. Prof was always accessible to his students. When I was at Queen's University in Canada, I worked in the library. And one time they were throwing away all the books where they had additional copies. So I asked them, what were they going to do with the books? They said they were going to be trashed. And I said, oh, could I have them for the law faculty? And they said yes. So I ended up with 48 boxes of books in my apartment. Now, I didn't know how these books were going to get to Ghana. Every week, my landlord would come and look at the boxes and ask me when the boxes were moving. Eventually, I think Prof was at the IRS at the time. I managed to get a message to Prof that I was about to be kicked out of my apartment with 48 boxes of law books. Prof immediately called the High Commissioner. They sent a van and they picked these 48 boxes of books before my landlord kicked me and the books onto the streets of Kingston, Ontario. That was Prof, always accessible. Beyond all this, Prof was very committed to building the institutional capacity of the Faculty of Law. He wanted Ghanaian students to be able to compete with their counterparts anywhere in the world. But he also wanted us to understand and address the specific legal and development challenges facing Ghana. So as much as Prof would help you to get graduate admissions and go do your masters, Prof would always stay in touch and encourage you to come back home. So his appointment as visiting professor at Temple University in Philadelphia, and he was a visiting lecturer at Leiden University in the Netherlands, enriched his teaching. It also opened up opportunities for us, his students, because most of us got admission to these universities because on the strength of Prof's references. Prof was also a very kind lecturer. He was one of those lecturers who was always giving lifts to his students. There was one particular lift story that happened in my class that was very interesting. Because the three parties in this story are now a Court of Appeal judge and two very respected lawyers, I will not mention their names. So, one day, the one who is now a judge was studying at the law library. He took off his shoes while studying and he fell asleep. Another classmate, let's call him J1, goes and picks his shoes. Then he decides to leave the library and hands the shoes over to J2. It was time for a lecture. J2, rather than leaving the shoes in the library, took the shoes to the lecture room. So our current Court of Appeal judge had to walk barefoot to the lecture room. So he gets to the lecture room, livid, and sees his shoes with J2. And asked J2 how he got his shoes. J2 said, hey, non est factum, not my deed. It was J1 who gave me the shoes. At this time, J1 is sitting in a corner of the lecture room. He knows he's in trouble. And the victim is making signals to show him that he'll get a good beating after class. So class ends, and victim goes to hide by the School of Communication Studies. There are some bushes there, waiting for J1 to come and receive the beating of his life. This would probably have ended up with at least two of them expelled from the law faculty. So J1 is hiding at the law faculty, unable to go back to the hostel. And then luckily for him, Prof used to come evenings to check his mailbox on his way home. Prof comes, law faculty is stacked, and Prof is like, what are you doing here? He mumbles something. Prof said, no, you get into my car. So he gets into Prof's car. They drive past the victim, still standing in the bushes, and he waves at him, waiting to beat him up. And Prof takes him straight to his hostel, which was out of Prof's way, and then Prof drives off to Legon Hills. And so every time we talk about this, I tell them, Certainly, one of you would not be a lawyer today, and one would not be a judge, because we would have all been sent home. But that was the measure of Prof, and that was the kind of relationship Prof had with his students.